If you can do a 22-inch kettle and work a brisket on it, you can probably do just about anything on anything else.
That, where it gets you right in the back of the throat and it just hangs on to you and says, that's right, it's chow time.
Next time, that's what I'm going to do different on the brisket.
That looks really nice. Morning. Let's do some brisket. And before we jump into the brisket part, because it's already super trim, if you have a little thermometer that you set on the grill and it happens to have this grime that gets on it, it doesn't really come off very easily just by wiping it with a paper towel. However, oven cleaner is amazing. I'm going to take this over there because I don't want to spray around my food area. I'm essentially just going to spray this and go let it sit for a few minutes, let it work its magic, and then wipe it off. Make sure it's all dry before I set it on the grill. The chimney was started. Figured it'll take probably about 10 minutes to go through this super trim brisket. It's about 6.5 pounds. Go through it, make sure that it's exactly how we want it. Do some flavoring, sprinkle down. We've got the 3-2-1 rub. Ryan's all about simple stuff, and this rub is the most versatile thing. It's 3 parts pepper, 2 parts salt, 1 part garlic, and it's amazing on everything. So we've got that. By the time we're finished with this, we should be ready to start the snake on the grill and put this on. So when Ryan showed us in the brisket video we did a little while back, he was looking for hard fat. He says the hard fat doesn't render out. So we're gonna, there's this little part right here. Not really horrible. A little bit down in this area here, I think, it can come out. Just a little bit, not much. So something I didn't know about the rub is that if you have a coarse, like this is extra coarse salt in here, and the pepper's not as coarse, and certainly the granulated garlic powder is not as coarse, so things will kind of clump up together, and you gotta kind of roll them around to kind of keep them going. So to reiterate what Ryan said, to press the rub, despite it being called a rub, we don't want it to bunch up into little sections. Pressing it on there will get it to help stick in place. And for these harder to reach areas that are vertical over here and over here, put it in my hand and just press the hand up against it there. So that looks great. I'm going to set this off to the side. Let's clean that thermometer. So this has been sitting for about 5 minutes. You can see all the stuff is already starting to come off down here. We'll just take and wipe this down. Mostly I am concerned about the face because I want to be able to see the temperature. First wipe makes it usable again. Well, here's something interesting. Normally we start the snake over here, however I've already got ash coals over here simply because the heat from these coals dropping through came this direction. So now to light the snake, I've got these vents open as much as possible. Starting it on this side, it'll work around in a counterclockwise direction. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to, but it'll work. Thermometer, I'm going to place it on the opposite side of where the coals are.
So as this thing travels around, this thermometer, much like the exhaust vent, will travel around as well, giving me a more accurate read. So setting this opposite side the coals. Go a little bit more than half here. Go a little bit more than half here. Let that sit and get up to temperature. We're at 6.5 pounds of brisket, so hour 15 minutes per pound. We're looking at right around 7.5 hours, and hopefully around that time we'll be probe tender. Once we're probe tender, that's it. Temperature was at 175, still climbing, so I'm gonna leave the vents exactly where they are, and I'll check on this. I'll check on this in 5 hours. So I imagine that 5 hours later I would be back here. Turns out that I had a slight mishap and had to ring my neighbor to come pick me up.
Yeah, things happen.
So, let's see.
Moral of the story?
Have a good neighbor with a truck.
And don't buy a cheap chain.
Don't buy cheap chains for motorcycles. All right, so what are we at?
You put on at 9?
8.
8?
So about 10 hours? 8 hours?
Ish.
Yeah, 8.5 hours.
8.5 hours.
Somewhere around there. 8.5 hours.
Okay, so whenever I looked at it before when picked you up, all of it was dry.
Okay.
But you see how it's starting to let off moisture and everything now?
Yes.
You're probably sitting at about 185, 190 once you probe it.
All right, but we were looking for probe tender.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice that that's not quite probe tender yet. Oh, look, we're in Celsius. Imagine that. Okay, so somehow I'm still in a stall.
Your rub's better this time.
Yeah. Well, I actually followed the recipe. 3, 2, 1. Pepper, salt,
garlic.
Not salt, pepper, garlic.
Yeah.
Even though it's salt, pepper, garlic life. 3, 2, 1. Don't pay attention to all that. And don't argue with Ryan about it. Let me do that. All right, so we'll let this go probably another hour. And I think we'll about be ready.
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid to say I didn't do this one right. So for the past 2 hours, I've been trying to get this thing up to temperature. We're at 260, 270, somewhere around there. 165, 150, 60, 160. I'm not proud of this. It's looking good. I'm gonna pull it off, wrap it up, let it rest. We'll cut this thing up in about 20 minutes, see how it did. I will say one thing though. I'm very happy with the way how the snake worked. The snake took off here, came all the way around, and kept the kettle right about 225. What I think should have happened was I should have built the snake so that it got progressively bigger so that the temperature would bump up as it goes around, starting at 225 and then bumping up to about 275, 285 towards the end of it to get the brisket out of the stall and back up to where it needs to be in temperature so that it gets probe tender. So I think next time that's what I'm going to do different on the brisket. We should really let this rest longer. Probably want to give it like 45 minutes of rest time on the 6.5 pound brisket. At least that's what I seem to recall. Obviously, I'm no pro at this. So I'm going to pull it out of the aluminum foil. We'll slice it up. It's only been about 15 minutes. Yeah. That's definitely doable. Probably eat that. See if I can get the balance. Not as brisket yogurty as what we would like. Seem to have seen better in the past. Oh. I'll tell you what though, Flavor-wise, that's spot on. That, where it gets you right in the back of the throat and it just hangs on to you and says, that's right, it's chow time. I'm gonna be full by the time this hits the table. So it wasn't perfect as far as the cook goes, but the taste on the texture came out pretty darn good. Learn and learn.